Okay, so I'm having trouble figuring out how to code the place of injury. Can you give some help with understanding them? So,
Man, once you start on those, they are so much fun.
this is a really great question because not every facility or every provider utilizes these codes. So the place of injury is, you're going to find that in the external cause code section. So those are the old E codes in ICD 9 and ICD 10. They're now chapter 20 for external causes of morbidity. So when you're looking at these codes, the coders and the providers, they're trying to help answer questions that affect the treatment, such as how did the injury or condition happen? Was it an accident? Was it a fall? Where did it happen? And this is your place of injury. So that's just one of the segments of external causes. What was the patient doing when it happened? Were they riding a bike? Were they skydiving? Were they something more fun than, were they sitting in their office chair and the wheel broke and they fell off? So was it intentional or unintentional? So that section is important because if it stems from a toxin or a poison, then you're going to go to the T chapter, and those codes already have this answer of intentional or unintentional. So that one's kind of taken care of with your diagnosis code. So when you're looking at coding your external causes, some rules to remember, they're in the ICD-10 guidelines prior to, or in the section for external causes. So you're going to look at these codes are never sequenced as a primary or a principal diagnosis, nor are they reported alone. So you're always going to have your injury code as your primary diagnosis. In most cases, these codes are only used on the initial encounter. And that's the case for the 6-digit codes that they have. The 7-digit codes have the corresponding encounter character of A, D, or S. So the 7-digit codes you can actually report again on your subsequent visits. So normally you're going to assign as many external codes as you can so that you can fully explain the cause for the encounter. But there should only be one code from each for a place of occurrence, activity, and one status code that's assigned to the encounter. You're going to list your codes sequentially to note the events causing that injury. Was it a fall and then you hit an object when you fell? So sometimes that happens, people fall off a ladder, but then they hit a structure below the ladder. So which one caused that injury is what they're trying to look at. So you want to sequentially code them. Typically, your place of occurrence codes are reported after your other external causes. So you want to think of the order of how these things happened. Your place of occurrence is not going to be prior to the fall or automobile accident. So as a coder, you may not always see these codes used. Not every insurance carrier accepts them as a valid diagnosis on your submitted claim. So some payers and states have mandates about reporting these. Currently, there's about 15 states that do require the use of these codes. So if your state is not one of those, then you can voluntarily report these codes. But I'll get into a little bit later why you might want to report these codes. And finally, if you have a place or an activity that's not known or it's not stated, then you're not going to use, there is an unspecified code, but you're not going to use that because it's really not providing any more information as to how that injury occurred. So you'd be better off leaving it blank than including a unspecified Y92.9 for an unspecified place or Y93.9 for an unspecified activity. So you really wouldn't use either of those unspecified codes. But we're going to look at an example of how one of these codes could be utilized. So the patient was brought to urgent care by their parents. He suffered a forehead and right elbow injuries while he was roller skating, and he hit a parked vehicle in the driveway. So he was not wearing a helmet or any safety gear. And treated, and he was being referred to orthopedic for follow-up. So you'd have your S09.90XA for an unspecified injury to the head, your S59.901A for an unspecified injury to the elbow. I'm going to assume in this instance they don't have an X-ray capability at this urgent care center. So then you're going to get into your place of occurrence codes. So you have your V03.01XA is a pedestrian on roller skates injured in a collision with a car, pickup, or a van in a non-traffic accident. So you're not in traffic, you're not on a roadway when this happened, is your non-traffic accident. And Y92.014 is a private driveway of your home as your place of occurrence. So our provider evaluated the patient with these injuries, asked them to follow up with a specialist if there's still any problems. So as the urgent care is where the family sought the initial treatment, that facility is going to report the external cause codes to the insurance carrier for documentation purposes. But once that patient goes to the specialist's office, only the external cause codes with the 7 digits you would subsequently report. So we would not include on another encounter that it happened in the driveway. We're going to say that he was on roller skates in a non-traffic accident with your D as the extender for your subsequent claims to the insurance company. So we try and look at a little bit different example. We have a patient who already has an appointment set up with their primary care because they have a rash or an allergic reaction that happened while they were gardening. So while walking into the office, the patient trips and falls on a loose tile, suffering an open wound to the left knee. So during the encounter, the provider treats the rash by prescribing a cream for the contact dermatitis and then stitched that open wound on the knee. So we're going to have our diagnosis code of L23.7 for an allergic contact dermatitis due to plants, S81.01XA, which is our laceration with a foreign body for the left knee. Then our place of occurrence codes, we're going to have W01.118A, which is a fall on the same level from slipping, tripping, or stumbling with a subsequent striking against other sharp object. So you have, in this category, there are hitting glass, hitting something mechanical. So we have, this is other sharp object. And Y92.531 is a place of occurrence for a healthcare provider's office. I guess they're common enough that they have their own code. So as this accident just occurred, the primary care is the first provider to see these injuries and treat them. So that provider's office is going to submit the claim with the external cause codes to the insurance carrier for documentation. But as you can also guess, in this example, these external cause codes would be especially important should there be any additional action taken on case of the patient. In this case, is our place of occurrence is right there in the office. So once these codes are reported to the insurance carriers, what happens with that information once they've been reported? So these codes are used for statistical purposes by research offices like Johns Hopkins actually collects some of this information. And of course, your government agencies like the CDC or Department of Health and Human Services. Those help modify treatment plans. They even work to make changes in laws. So for example, if you have injuries while using a trampoline, we had so many injuries that prompted manufacturers to create the netting to go around the trampolines for safety, or changing the laws like so many injuries from accidents of a fall while riding a bike. A lot of states prompted to create a bicycle helmet law. So we also see these codes being utilized to provide support by means of medical necessity for the services that we submit. For example, if a patient ran into another player on the basketball court and hit their head. So the service provided was just observation. But however, the external cause codes that get reported on the claim can provide additional information to the carrier about the extent of the treatment that was given, about their medical decision-making process that the provider used, and finally about medical necessity. So if any of the additional services could be provided at a later date, say a couple days later they have other complications and need a scan, you have your basis for your medical decision-making. And these cause codes, another big thing is they help the medical claim process. So help get that service processed a little bit more efficiently, resulting in quicker payment typically. Now, some insurance carriers will see the injury code automatically pop up that red flag about the claims. Typically, they're hoping on the end that another entity is going to provide the payment for the service. So they'll possibly deny your claim asking for medical records, or they'll send a letter to the patient to fill out an accident detail form or a coordination of benefits form. A lot of times those letters, they'll make the patient responsible for that claim until they receive that information in order to process the claim. So it could be a while in getting payment. Once you send all that information in and then you're waiting for the claims to be processed with those codes, there's probably multiple providers as well, like your hospital, your radiology office. They've all filed with this injury and they're all going to be denied requesting this information. So it could take many weeks to straighten out, which would deny payment of your claim. But if you had the external cause code included on your claim, that tells the story of what incident happened that resulted in an injury, such as you fell out of bed while at home sleeping. So the carrier is aware that it was truly an accident and that another liability carrier or workman's compensation is not responsible to pay the claims in relation to your clavicle fracture that you suffered when you fell out of bed. So having those codes on the claim form can be very beneficial in the end. It helps to establish a quicker payment from the insurance carrier.
Excellent. Those are good, guys. I have to tell you, Jennifer is much more, what would be the, no, it's hard to say calm. That's not, here I'm doing head-on flail chest traumas and stuff, and she's got people falling down in the doctor's office, and it's like, wow. That's
Come
a
on
testament
in.
to our backgrounds, probably, right? Oh, excellent.
Do you need more medical certification and business training? Learn more at www.cco.us.